So Douglas Murray has waded into the whole Tucker Carlson controversy. For those of you who have been living under a rock for the last few days, Tucker Carlson has come under fire for, to be honest, this is nothing new for anyone that's been following. He's been engaging in anti-Semitic and anti-Israel tropes for a long time, but he took it maybe to a new level when interviewing Nick Fuentes in a very fawning, unchallenging interview. What's funny is that I even saw his YouTube account upload a video which they entitled, let me just get it up. They entitled it, they took a clip from this interview that you can see here, and it said, Tucker debates Nick Fuentes on his most controversial views. You can look it up. He doesn't debate him at all. He just listens there, and frankly, doesn't give much pushback, unlike, say, his interview with Senator Ted Cruz, where Tucker was so critical, challenging, and difficult, and frankly dismissive of much of what Senator Ted Cruz had to say. So clearly, there was something very concerning going on in, it's one thing to platform, but another thing to platform and not challenge someone with neo-Nazi views. And so various people have come out saying this is a big problem, including leading lights of the conservative movement in America, including Ben Shapiro. But another one has waded in, and that is Douglas Murray. And I want to read to you what Douglas Murray had to say in the New York Post about this, because as ever, he is always on point. So Douglas said, Tucker Carlson is not a good friend. Just a few years ago, when the podcaster was pretending to be friends with President Trump, Carlson was caught privately saying of Trump, I hate him passionately. In September, another person that Carlson claimed to be friends with, Charlie Kirk, was shot dead. Carlson used the aftermath of his friend's assassination not to demand that the suspect in the shooting be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. He didn't seize the moment to insist that perhaps the radical left dial down their hateful rhetoric against conservatives and Republicans. Don't forget, by the way, the shooter was a big supporter of, radical trans activism. And so clearly there was a kind of deep leftist progressive viewpoints that somehow radicalized him, made him informed his decision to kill him. By the way, I'm not saying that therefore people on the progressive side are necessarily going to want to kill people. I'm just saying that that was his ideology that led him to a road in thinking that Charlie is someone that needs to be killed. Douglas continued by saying, nor did he keep attention focused on the trans extremist links of the alleged shooter. Indeed, no, Carlson chose to use the occasion to deflect attention from the perpetrator seized by the FBI and return to his pet obsession, the Jews. In the wake of the assassination, Carlson was one of a number of kooky online influencers who suggested that Kirk's views on Israel had been changing and that perhaps, for this reason, the state of Israel had something to do with his murder. It was a crazy conspiracy theory, but Carlson was happy to push it. What a way to honour a friend. Then this past week, Carlson proved again what an appalling person he has become. He invited onto his show an avowed Holocaust denier and racist, Nick Fuentes. We don't need to linger here over all the horrifying and trolling bile that Fuentes has spewed out to his online followers. It's enough to say that he is so toxic that he could almost have been invented by the radical left as a way to delegitimize the political right in this country. Any normal person would want to keep a million miles away from such a snarling, ugly actor. But if anyone was to sit down and give Fuentes one of the largest audiences of his career, you would have thought that there would be some hostile questions. The kind of relentlessly hostile questioning Carlson can do, such as in his recent astoundingly hostile interview with Ted Cruz. But no, Carlson used his hours with Fuentes to simply launder Fuentes' reputation and try to give him a veneer of reasonableness and respectability. Which brings me back to what an appalling friend Tucker Carlson is. Carlson might have used the opportunity to put to Fuentes some of the disgusting things Fuentes has said about the assassinated Kirk. He might have raised the way in which Fuentes and his Groyper following promised to hound and torment Kirk while he was alive. Carlson might have also asked Fuentes why he hasn't seen fit to use the weeks after Kirk's assassination, not only to push the claim, why he had seen fit to use the weeks after Kirk's assassination, not only to push the claim that the Jews murdered Kirk, but to also attack Kirk's widow. In a recent online rant, Fuentes said Erica Kirk is a spook. Erica Kirk is a plant. We all know that. That is a fact. That is basically established. She was shopping around for a political husband. God knows where she comes from. She found one in Charlie Kirk. Charlie is not a good-looking guy. Fuentes went on to suggest that Kirk's mourning widow is just acting. It's a heck of a thing to claim to be friends with someone and then bring a guest onto your show who not only hounded your friend in life, but mocks and smears his widow after his death. But then that's the sort of friend Tucker Carlson is. And there is worse, because Carlson also claims to be friends with Vice President JD Vance. He's appeared on stage with him and warmed up for him and President Trump at rallies. Most of us think friendship includes defending your friends and defending their wives. Not Carlson. Here is just some of what Fuentes has recently said about JD Vance and his beautiful and impressive wife, Usha. During one recent rant, Fuentes described JD Vance as a fat race mixer who's married to a Jeet who named his son Vivek. For anyone not up on their racist cesspool terms, a Jeet turns out to be a racist term used to smear people of South Asian, especially Indian ancestry. I didn't know that either. Fuentes went on to claim that Vance was mentored by a Jewish neocon and a gay Fed, and again called Vance a fat gay race traitor who married the Jeet. Elsewhere, he has attacked people for supporting Vance because of the ethnicity of Vance's wife and the fact that the couple have produced children who Fuentes calls non-white. Elsewhere, Fuentes has attacked Vance because, quote, his kids are brown. These are vile things to say about anyone. Most of us wouldn't want to be anywhere near someone who said such things about total strangers. But if you had somebody in front of you who had said that about your own friend, his wife and children, wouldn't you bring it up? Putting aside for a moment why you would platform such a toxic toad in the first place, why then allow him to normalize himself in front of a worldwide audience without even bringing up all the disgusting things he has said about people you claim to know and love? At the end of last week, the president of the Heritage Foundation in Washington tied himself into a completely avoidable political mess by issuing a video defending Carlson. Goodness knows why Kevin Roberts chose to do that. It wasn't as though the nation was desperate to hear from him, but I suppose Roberts did it, like other people who have stood up for Tucker during his recent downward spiral, because he values loyalty and friendship. If that is the case, then Roberts, like Trump, JD, and others in the Republican movement, should reflect on what a friend they have in Tucker Carlson, a man who seems intent on normalizing Holocaust deniers and on destroying the MAGA movement from within. Some patriot, some conservative, some friend. Douglas is indeed right about all of this. And before I give you some final comments, I want to show something to you quickly. A quick update before we continue. I've got some big news for you. We've finally decided to bring JTV in person. I'm planning a speaking tour across America where I'll be talking about everything from the big issues the Jewish people and Israel face today to Judaism's deepest ideas. And of course, I'll be taking your questions. If you want me to come to your location, just click the Google form link below in the video description and I'll be in touch. Let's have a conversation. So yeah, do please be in touch if you are part of an organization or event space or venue in America. I'd love to speak to you. But going back to Tucker Carlson, I think what Douglas said is absolutely on the money because people are trying to have it both ways. You can't say, we've got to be loyal and a friend to someone like Tucker Carlson because he's our friend. But then if Tucker is betraying and stowing division in a venomous way, to quote Roberts, towards people like Kirk and others and Christian Zionists, who is the one that's not being a friend here? Precisely as Douglas said. Similarly, on the free speech point, people say, we've got to allow him his free speech. Okay, so have it both ways then. If it's free speech for Tucker to say what he wants to say, it should be free speech too for people to be able to criticize him and say, hey, those ideas are wrong, and we should have higher standards of ourselves and what we do in this political movement. It's so important that we have moral clarity on this, and I'm going to keep banging the drum on this point because it's concerning to see the more classic old school anti-Semitism normalized. We see it on the left, but it's at least in quote unquote behind the veneer of we're just against Israel, Jews, of course. So it is against the Jews, but they at least feel the need to hide it to some extent. Whereas here, it is outright open, classical Jew hate. And That's why we need to keep ringing the bell of moral clarity for those who are willing to listen. I believe many are prepared to listen, so I'm going to keep speaking up. A quick message. We all hear about the Palestinian displacement, or Nakba, of 1948. But you know, there was another, even greater displacement that we haven't been told about. Nearly 1 million Jews were expelled from Arab lands at the exact same time. Watch the trailer for our new and absolutely essential documentary called The Real Nakba. And if you want to watch the full film, just click the link below in the video description. We've all been told about the Nakba, the Palestinian catastrophe of 1948. Around 700,000 Arabs were displaced. But here's what you're rarely told. That displacement didn't come from some Jewish plan for genocide. It wasn't Israel's goal. It wasn't Israel's desire. It happened because Arab leaders launched a war of annihilation. They tried to wipe out the newborn Jewish state, vowing to drive the Jews into the sea. And in the chaos of that war, people fled. Many because their leaders told them to, promising they'd return after victory. But the term Nakba was originally used to describe the fact that the Arabs lost the war, not the displacement. Now the term describes the displacement of war used as a political weapon against Israel. But you know, there was another Nakba you haven't been told about. A catastrophe rooted not in the fog of war, but in the clear, deliberate desire for persecution and genocide. It happened at the very same time, and it led to even more displacement. Yet most of the world has never heard of it. Over 850,000 Jews, more than the number of displaced Arabs, were driven from their homes across the Arab world. Communities that had thrived for millennia were uprooted overnight. Families stripped of citizenship, of property, of dignity, assaulted, expelled, forced to flee with nothing but their faith. Why? Because they were Jews. Because Israel dared to exist. Because the Arab League openly orchestrated it, drafting plans in 1947 to freeze Jewish bank accounts, seize property, and intern Jews as enemy nationals. This is the real Nakba, a catastrophe born of pure anti-Semitism. In this JTV documentary, we'll journey country by country, from Baghdad to Cairo, from Sana'a to Tripoli, uncovering buried truths and survivor voices. And no, this isn't a tale of victimhood, it's a saga of endurance, courage, and triumph. Because the Jewish people didn't just survive this Nakba, we rebuilt, we came home. In Israel, our phoenix soared from the ashes. So buckle up and let's dive in. To watch this JTV Plus documentary and access much more premium content, click on the link in the video description.